Hi, and welcome to Word Nerd Wednesday. This Wednesday, I was inspired to talk about the word abolish. I was inspired by this quote in particular while I was researching some information for my article on my great-great-grandmother, Virginia Clarissa Thaus Fairweather. There's an article of that on my site. But this is the quote that came up when I looked up when was slavery abolished in the Caribbean. It's on Wikipedia. And it says, France re-abolished slavery in her colonies in 1848, in her fucking colonies, with a general and unconditional emancipation. I didn't even really need to read further than that. What caught me up was re-abolish. Because like annihilate, I assume that once something was abolished, it could not be abolished again. It could not be abolished or re-abolished. So, of course, that sends me on a hunt, because I need to know, what does abolish mean? So, abolish in the colloquial common language says put an end to, do away with. Mid-15th century into the English language from Old French abolis, which is a present particle of abolir, and that's from Latin abolere, destroy, efface, annihilate, cause to die out, retard the growth of, which is from, and this is a perhaps because this is one of those words that has a questionable origin. It says perhaps from ab, off, away from Latin, and adolere, to grow. So adolere means to grow, and the ab part of it means off, away from. And the Proto-Indo-European word is ol, that's O-L-E-Y-E dash, but that comes from the root al, which is just spelled A-L, which is to grow, nourish, but has a link next to it, so we follow the link. We always follow the link. Now, al, the Proto-Indo-European root word, has two meanings. Abolish is with root meaning two, but root meaning one, interestingly enough, is beyond. Root meaning two of al is to grow, nourish. Now, this root, this Proto-Indo-European root in English represents all of these words that I'm about to read to you. Abolish, it's at the root of all of these words that I'm about to read to you. Abolish, adolescent, adult, alderman, aliment, alimony, alma, alma mater, alt, alti, altimeter, altitude, alto, alumnus, ald, elder, eldest, eldred, enhance, exalt, hot, hottie, hot boy, houser, oboe, old, proletarian, proliferation, prolific, and world. I mean, that's a pretty epic word, all things considered. Al, small, but packs a big punch. So, interestingly enough, at the root of abolish, a word that has come to mean annihilate through the ab part of it, we have the annihilation of the growth or the nourishment of something. Therefore, if something is annihilated, I would imagine it cannot be re-annihilated. That's what I think, but I'm not sure. Now, but the Latin word could also be from Greek, which I'm going to totally fuck up the pronunciation of this, but olimi or apolimi, or olimi, which means destroy. So there is actually a question about whether the word abolish comes from the root word to grow or the root word to destroy. And that's kind of interesting, actually, and paradoxical, and therefore appropriate, considering the nature of the universe. It's interesting, actually, from an alchemical language perspective, as far as I am concerned, that the original Latin for the word that abolish comes from either adolere or apolumi, that one meaning to grow and one meaning to destroy. Because the truth of the matter is that it's not that abolishment is a good or bad thing. It's a neutral thing. It's about how you use it in your life, right? How you use that energy in your life. So if you're going around abolishing everything in your life, you're going to have nothing, right? Because that's the point of annihilation. However, just like in a garden, it's not that a weed is a good or bad thing. It's just that if there are a lot of weeds, They're going to choke out the life of a lot of other things. They do not live harmoniously in the environment with the other things. If they are too many of them, it's not that they're not allowed to grow, because weeding is all about taking them out, right? They come and they have a place, but they have a time and a place, and they are not necessary for all moments. So abolishment as well could be tending to a garden, abolishing things in your life no longer needed. Changing yourself, changing circumstances, changing the nature of existence, which we are doing anyway at every moment. Everybody is their own original creation. Well, yeah, you're not the original designer, but you are the original creator. Only one life to live, only one you. YOLO, until you live again in whatever form that you do, because no energy can be destroyed. That's physics. But, yeah, it's curious to me, to grow or to destroy. It's not like, it makes me think one can't be had without the other. And so they're the opposite sides of the same coin. But let's talk a little bit about the idea of re-abolishing this thing previously known as slavery. Now, there's this tradition in perhaps English or perhaps Anglo-Saxon or perhaps Latin or perhaps Greek, all languages that English comes from, right? So there's this tradition in English to basically put the onus of a terrible thing on the person that it happens to, right? So it's not called enslavement, it's called slavery. It's called the slave trade, like the motherfucking people came up and said, please put me in chains and put me on a boat and trade me. But it wasn't that, right? It was enslavement. It was, people were enslaved. They weren't slaves, they were enslaved. So let's just abolish slavery from our vocabulary. Also, while we're on the topic, and maybe this will come up next Word Nerd Wednesday, the word racism. There's no such thing as race. They can't be racist because there's no such thing as race. They can be pigment prejudiced. I think that is a much more understanding and encompassing way to describe a racist. They're prejudiced because of pigmentation. And there's no such thing as race. So racism, to say someone is a racist, is to give power to the idea that there is such thing as race. Whereas if you're like, this motherfucker is just a really big bigot and kind of a fool because he thinks pigmentation affects how mature or able any other kind of human being is, it's bizarre, right? Because it's like, the orange cats and the black cats play together. The sycamores and the firs grow next to each other. There are literally like 17 different kinds of roses. Not literally, there's definitely not 17. I don't know how many kinds of roses there are. But the point is, diversity is as natural as anything. It's not the most natural thing. Change is also the most natural thing. And so the idea of racism is stupid. That's the short story there. But the word's abolish. So let us review. Abolish can only be done one time if that's what you actually mean, because it means to destroy, efface, annihilate, and to cause to die out, retard to growth. For instance, the dodo bird was abolished from the earth, right? Because there's no more of them. What else was abolished? Slavery? No. Enslavement? Also no. Still around. So it wasn't abolished the first time. It wasn't re-abolished. We still got to deal with this shit. And that's Word Nerd Wednesday. One addendum. So I said slavery abolished, but what I should say is never existed. It didn't exist to abolish. It is a non-thing, as is racism. Also not something to abolish. Pigment prejudice, definitely something to abolish. Enslavement, definitely something to abolish. That's my addendum. Abolished